but in particular, it's the lead vocals tone.
Mm.
And I was unsuccessful in pinning it down. So the best I could get was like a mixture of like a soapbox orator hurling down proclamations, crossed with a sort of knowing sixth former dripping with sarcasm for a world he doesn't yet know or understand. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's John, his name's Andy. The future teaches you to be alone, the present to be afraid and cold. So if I can shoot rabbits, then I can shoot fascists. More on that later.
All right.
But first, Andy, my friend, what have you got in store for us today?
We're gonna check out a band who's making their first appearance on the channel. It is a band called the Thermals. Have you caught wind of or heard of the Thermals?
Are they up and coming? Um, no, I don't think I've heard of a band called the Thermals.
Okay, excellent. Well, that'll make this
We're
experience.
talking about. Are we talking about patches of air, or are we talking about undergarments?
I don't know. I guess it depends on how they make you feel when you listen to them. If they make you feel warm and cozy, then let's go with the underwear. We'll rock with that. But yeah, the track by them that I want you to check out is one called "Now We Can See." So you've got everything you need from me, my friend. I'd be very much interested to hear what you have to say about these guys on the other side. So please go off, give them a listen, and come back and report your findings.
Yeah, nice start that. It's nice to have the reverse, so you have the sort of vocalized catchy hook bit coming in first, and it's building the sort of rhythm and structure of it. The away and then in comes the indie rock guitar riff, fitting it together nicely, and instantly it's catchy and it's dragging you in, um, just like they knew they would. Yeah, good start.
We were born in the desert, we were reared in a cave. We conquered in the sun, but we lived in the shade. Yeah, baby, we were savage, we existed to kill. Our history is damaged, at least it was a thrill. But now we can see, now that our vision is strong, we don't need to admit we were wrong. Now we can.
This is all very familiar. The riff, the sound, everything's really familiar. Particularly his vocals. Man, they sound like a combination of like three or four different people. It's sparking off for some reason. Fred from B-52s. That kind of knowing proclamation type singing. But there's like a bit of sarcasm in there as well. Kind of like, doesn't sound like, but the kind of the way he does it is like Malcolmus from Pavement. And there's something else in there as well. It'll come to me. Touch of They Might Be Giants or something? I don't know. It'll come to me. It's bugging me now.
punches don't stick. Our enemies lie dead on the ground and still we kick. Hey! Oh, way, oh, 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 way, oh, 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 way, oh, oh. Oh, way, oh, 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 way, oh, oh.
Just to say, the drummer's doing a great job here. Nothing too overboard. He's just putting the right amount of accent and finesse on the margins of the song to keep it all together. Really, really nicely done.
Now we can see the warnings and the signs, reading between the lines like writing on the wall. Now we can see, what do we need? We should need nothing, nothing at all. Yeah! We were born on an island, we grew out of the sand. Never saw another creature, never knew another man. Yeah, baby, we were nothing, we existed for less. Our present was empty, our history a mess. But now we can see, now we do as we please. Now we do away with our disease. Now we can see, now the image sticks. We still need the medicine quick. We still take the pill, but only for the fix. Hey! Now we can see the warnings and the signs, reading between the lines like writing on the wall. Now we can see, what do we need? We should need nothing, nothing at all. Oh, way, oh, 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 way, oh, 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 way, oh, oh. Oh, way, oh, 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 way, oh, 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 way, oh, oh. Yeah, now we can see.
Yeah, I quite enjoy that actually. Didn't feel like anything particularly new or exciting musically, but it just all fitted and felt right. When it started towards the end, the vocalist, he sounded like almost like an American version of Ollie from Squid, a little bit. Is that what I'm thinking of? I don't know. Um, I like the sort of low key guitar solo, but it was, from my reckoning, just looking at the timestamps, it was about 15 seconds, which probably wasn't enough. But yeah, overall, it was really nice. I spent too long listening to the sound of it rather than listening to the actual words. They kept coming and going, so I didn't retain them. They were definitely there. But I got an idea of almost like a biblical tale of, like an origin tale of, we did this and did that and then came out the sea. It says something about coming out the sea and stuff. We no longer need this and that. So I'm guessing from that it's some sort of social political statement, I guess. But I did not catch enough to real hazard if it's about anything in particular at all. But yeah, it was good sound. I enjoyed it. It sounded good. I need to find out more. And to do that, I need to go back and chop it up with Brother Andy.
Now we can see that you've returned. What do you make of this of this track?
So I liked the reverse opening, the way they changed it around. So the vocalized away, oh, whoa, whatever it is, coming in. It's like a scout to survey and establish the rhythm before the main artillery of the instruments joins us. It's done in the reverse, which is a nice way of doing it. I like that. So we're joined by this lovely indie rock guitar riff, one of those which is instantly familiar, even if you've not heard it before. In come the vocals. Now, this is a fairly short song, and I have to say I spent at least half of it trying to think of who he reminds me of. Oh, there's something really familiar about the whole thing, but I don't think I've heard this song before. But it's the sound, the melody, but in particular, it's the lead vocals tone.
Mm.
And I was unsuccessful in pinning it down. So the best I could get was like a mixture of like a soapbox orator hurling down proclamations, crossed with a sort of knowing sixth former dripping with sarcasm for a world he doesn't yet know or understand. Um, if I was recreating this voice in a cauldron with a big floppy hat, it would be a pinch of B-52's Fred Schneider, a dash of They Might Be Giants, a soupçon of Pavement's Stephen Malkmus, and even a little sprinkling of the less shouty bits of Squid's Ollie Judge. Just a little, but obviously Americanized.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus the other 14 herbs and things that the Colonel won't tell me about. There's something else.
Yeah.
There's something else in there which I can't quite pinpoint, but that's getting close to what it is.
Yeah.
And you'll probably say, well, actually, it's this guy from so-and-so. And oh, yeah, it bloody is. But yeah, so the catchy sort of vocalization parts to this,
yeah,
that we get at the start and then carrying through, give this a nice sort of power pop kind of feel. I know I hate that term and whatever, but I'm going to use it. That's shame on me. And in between, it's almost like the verses are tutorials, because I'm not getting the lyrics really. They're coming and I'm recognizing their words, but they're not sticking. They're coming out the other ear. I do find the drummer was doing a really decent job. He was just giving enough accent to the music. I really enjoyed his work because again, it wasn't over the top. It wasn't massive fills or anything, but he was just accenting it. And I really like tasteful drumming, and that was definitely it. Around the sort of 2:30 mark, we get this sort of nice mini guitar solo that totally fits in with the song. But I looked at it, and unless I'm really mistaken, it's about 15 seconds, so it's really mini, and it could have been a bit longer. And then towards the end, the singer starts to get a little bit shouty, and then the song finishes, and I was just caught unawares because I must have spent about half of it daydreaming about who does this guy sound like. I spent way too much time to actually take in the words, and this won't be the first time I've said this, and it won't be the last time either. However, I do get the impression of this sort of Americanized post-punk kind of with other sort of catchy indie, so this sort of blending, which is, I'm sure bands hate to be given genre labels and would, want to get as many as possible under their belt. So it has this overall sort of, I would call like an indie rock sound to it, which is very catchy and immediate. And I actually really enjoyed it, and it had like nice energy to it. His vocals, although they were like bugging me like crazy, the tone of them were actually I'd sort of leaned towards them. I really enjoyed them. Same with the guitar, same with the drums. I didn't catch the bass at all. Apologies, it wasn't intentional. I got the impression, and this is only an impression because I didn't take the words in, that it was some sort of almost like a biblical origin story, and the inference is either we don't really see now, or that we finally see that whatever has previously been pulling the wool over our eyes. So perhaps it's social political, but I don't have enough to go on. I was trying to think who musically it made me sound like, and there's like a sort of drifting fog of who these bands are. I got built to spill a little bit of that. Only from when I saw them live, it kind of reminded me of that. Because they got some support in Dinosaur Jr. And that sort of very similar to that. But there's other bands as well. I think it's like a blending of stuff. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. It's very catchy. And although I'm trying to pinpoint down this guy's voice, and I'm banging on about it way too much, it was enough of its own thing to make it very, leave an impression on me. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear more from this band, actually.
Excellent, cool. Well, I will try to bring more in the future. So I'm glad you really enjoyed this song. I think you sort of talked around like with the lyrical content. I think you're definitely on the right track, especially um, the verses kind of convey that progress or like where we started to where we are kind of
Right.
mentality. But yeah, this is a really interesting band. I'm a fan of theirs. They sort of had me during that peak time during the renaissance of indie post-punky stuff that was coming out over here at the time. So yeah, we'll jump into the Thermals and maybe check out more of them in the future. They were an American indie rock band based in Portland, Oregon, in the United States. The group was formed in 2002 with influences heavily rooted in both lo-fi as well as standard rock. The band's songs were also known for their political and religious imagery. In 2002, former bandmates Hutch Harris and Kathy Foster came together to form the Thermals, having previously worked together, most notably in the folk duo Hutch and Kathy. That's a name that's really outside the box. Their first album, More Parts Per Million, was released in 2003 by Sub Pop Records. You guessed it. The album was recorded. They put out. I swear to God, if we had $1 for every time we brought up their names, we'd be doing all right. The album was recorded and performed entirely by Hutch Harris, who played every instrument. The first live lineup was Harris with Kathy Foster on bass, Jordan Hudson on drums, and Ben Barnett on guitar. Their follow-up album, 2004's Fucking A, was mixed by Death Cab for Cutie member Chris Walla. During that period, Ben Barnett left the band and Hutch Harris took over the role as guitarist. Their third album, The Body, the Blood, the Machine, was produced by Brendan Canty of Fugazi and won the group much recognition and acclaim, appearing on multiple top album lists for the year 2006, such as NPR, the AV Club, and our beloved Pitchfork. So, Jordan Hudson dropped out of the band during the recording of their third album. Kathy Foster took over percussion duties in the recording studio, which Lauren Coleman performed on tour thereafter. The Thermals' fourth album, Now We Can See, I'll give you a guess what album this song featured on, was released in 2009 on the label Kill Rock Stars. Again, Foster worked as the percussionist on the album. Weston Glass joined the group as the drummer after the album had been completed. The Thermals' fifth album, Personal Life, was released September 7th of 2010. In October of 2012, former guitarist Joel Burrows died from complications from a car accident, unfortunately. And on January 31st, 2013, the Thermals signed to Saddle Creek Records. They've been named on here almost as often as Sub Pop, and plan to release their new album, Desperate Ground, on April 16th, 2013. But in March 2013, the Thermals were named one of Fuse TV's 30 must-see artists at South by Southwest. On January 6, 2016, the Thermals announced the release of their seventh studio album titled We Disappear. It was released on March 25th of 2016 via the aforementioned Saddle Creek Records. On April 9th, 2018, the band announced that they were officially disbanding after 16 years. So it probably comes as a little surprise that this track features on the band's fourth album of the same name. Lead singer Hutch Harris claimed the album hinges on a leitmotif of songs from when we were alive. The first single from the album was the title track, Now We Can See. It premiered at Pitchfork Media on February 10th, 2009. The album holds a score of 79 out of 100 from Metacritic based on generally favorable reviews. Alternative Press scored it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, while The Guardian, Slant Magazine, and Uncut all gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Pitchfork scored it a 7.8 out of 10, and Spin gave it an even 8 out of 10. Entertainment Weekly and the AV Club graded it a B plus and A, respectively. So this album got some pretty good reviews. Pitchfork wrote of the album, now we can see a concept album of sorts from the perspective of the dead. It's an album that looks at life not as something to urgently struggle through, but as something that has already passed, something that our narrator finally has some perspective on. Over at DIY, Lee White would write, "We'd better find something negative to mention about Now We Can See, so let's get it out of the way early. There's not a lot of variety to offer here, but to hell with that. This album is filled with an energy that can only really be captured when a band is recorded as dirtily as this. There's no adornment and no after effects put on this music, and the songs speak for themselves." As White would go on to say, "With too many bands and acts at the moment making their pop shiny and friendly or attempting to branch out into prog weirdiness, it's good to find albums such as this and bands that are still making this type of music that we got into this game for, like a three-piece Los Campesinos or the Cribs without the terrible attitude. The Thermals are for keeps." So, Drowned in Sound writer Adam Anonymous, interesting name, I doubt that's his Christian name, reviewed the album and had this to say of the title track we just listened to today. "The title track is a celebration of sorts, tipped at clarity of thinking, all OAO refrains tempered by barbed warnings seemingly aimed at the side effects of human progress. Admittedly, lead singer guitarist Hutch Harris doesn't bristle with such barely concealed righteous anger as on their previous album, yet he's rarely cut through the Thermal's grunge-tinted power pop with as much confident assertion." So, seems that they've shown some growth on this album, as kind of summed up by. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just interesting you reading out some of the reviews there. There's a couple of things that sort of piqued my interest. I mean, going in reverse order, as it were, that guy, I forgot which one it was just now, that was lambasting the, because this was 2009, did you say?
Yes,
2000?
yes. This album, yeah.
And he was lambasting the current sort of trends in production and over polishing, etc., which, what I say quite often. So,
Yeah.
well done him. Um, yeah, I wouldn't say that this sounded to me like, amazingly, underproduced or rough or raw compared
Yeah.
to, yeah, but I think it's all, in contrast to what's around you at the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
You whack this in 1991 and this would sound polished
Yeah.
compared to the sort of pre-grunge stuff that was coming out, Sonic
Yeah.
Youth or something like
But
that.
by 2011, 2013,
Yeah. This is
taking the leap of super shiny, polished sounding.
which is the same as what the Strokes managed to achieve in the early noughties compared to everything else around it. It would have sounded really lame if it had come out in 1984 or whatever. So that's a really interesting point. I'm glad some people actually, could see it. But you were saying there was a concept album of some sort with elements of life from the perspective of the dead, as it were. I just thought that's a really interesting idea. I don't know how successful they did it in doing it, but it's a really. And what elements would you pick if you were sort of looking at life in general? I guess progress would be one, and of society or whatever. Culture would be another, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, communication definitely would be one. I think. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and more in that article also went on to give the band some credit, particularly Hutch Harris, for being able to remove his own prejudice about the subject matters that the character that Death is looking back at life on, and not injecting that into the perspective or the narrative. It really wanted to pull his own personal views out of it, and they said that he was really successful in doing just that. So again, hats off for not doing what human nature is inclined to do, which is bleed your own prejudice or thoughts and biases into what you're speaking about, especially in this situation, and at a time in America where you'd probably be aggressively wanting to do that. I mean, 2016, we all know, and these are like artsy fartsy Oregoners who probably did not like what was happening. So good on him for being able to not make it so personal and vitriolic,
Yeah,
and looking at it from a different perspective.
because I mean, this is slightly getting off the point, but because nowadays, I mean, looking back at the last election, last year in your country, the talking heads or the viewpoints that you got were heavily coloured by the narrator, and you tuned in to whichever
Oh,
person that you would listen to, and it was like something would happen, and then you would get the spin, both positive and negative, from either side of what that event actually means. And this tremendous, crushing, or this fantastic victory, either way, put around just because someone said something in a TV debate or whatever. It's
yes.
really interesting that, and people, unfortunately, during this time of polarization, that's what they buy into.
Yeah. No,
Um,
you're absolutely right. And
and
it's something
things that
that's,
reinforce their worldview. Yeah.
yeah. And it's something that we've been
So
clearly
yeah.
working toward. You knew that was the way things were going, this sort of segregationist information news absorption thing that was kind of happening. And you're right. It really came to a head of late.
But
So,
But to go back to sort of like, other elements, not just the news, in
mhm,
terms of world views, in terms of, physical viewing or something, what the artist imprints upon it is what we've bought into for centuries.
mhm,
It's how Picasso or Degas or whoever sees it, is how Mozart or Beethoven hear it.
mhm.
And that's what you buy into. So to try and strip that away is a very brave thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. So let's jump into these lyrics while we're discussing the lyrics. So all that vocalizing that you had.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then we get into we were born in the desert, we were reared in a cave, we conquered in the sun, but we lived in the shade. Yeah,
Yes.
baby. Yeah, baby, we were savage. We existed to kill. Our history is damaged. At least it was a thrill. But now we can see, now that our vision is strong, we don't need to admit we were wrong. Now we can see, but the images don't stick. Our enemies lie dead on the ground, and still we kick. Oh, 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 oh. Now we can see the warnings and the signs, reading between the lines like writing on the wall. Now we can see, what do we need? We should need nothing, nothing at all. Yeah. We were born on an island. We grew out of the sand, never saw another creature, never knew another man. Yeah, baby, we were nothing. We existed for less. Our present was empty, our history a mess. But now we can see. Now we do as we please. Now we do away with our disease. Now we can see. Now the image sticks. Now we still need the medicine quick. We still take the pill, but only for the fix. Hey, now we can see the warnings and the signs, reading between the lines like writing on the wall. Now we can see, what do we need? We should need nothing, nothing at all. Oh, 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 oh. Yeah, now we can see. So, hidden in the lyrics is an explanation of the human psyche, how we think, how we act, and how it affects our species. So, that is a little blurb about the lyrics that was provided on the site. Yes, sir.
I have a few thoughts.
Okay.
So, obviously, I was taking this in, but not really taking it in. But the first sort of verse, or whatever, about come from the desert and from the caves and all. This is where I got that phrase, this biblical origin story from. I think
Mhm.
those impressions. But what I'm getting from this, I'm wondering if it's like Plato's cave, the story, of the people with the shadows and all that.
Yeah.
Um, this now, where you can see, ironically, do they really see? Do they want to see? When you turn around, and you see the reality of what's making the shadows. There's the argument Plato makes is most people turn back to the shadows rather than seeing the
Yeah.
reality,
Yeah.
and all of that. I'm paraphrasing a lot here, but it's really interesting. And like Born on an Island and Grew Out of Sand and stuff, these are all sort of really interesting images. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They are. Yeah, really, really interesting band. I really enjoyed this song. I'm glad that you did as well. And since you enjoyed it as much as you did and have your interest peaked somewhat, perhaps we can revisit the Thermals in the not so distant future. But what I have a couple songs in mind, but what I'd like also is guys out there in the listening audience, if you happen to be a fan of the Thermals or know some tracks by them that you're fond of and you'd like to see John give a listen to, please pop them down in the comments field below. And I will add it to the list of not necessarily recommendations. I'm quite certain I'm going to give John some more Thermals in the future, but it might help me make my decision in which of the few I have in mind to offer him up. So please sound off in the comments field below if you'd be so kind. Also, just let us know your thoughts on this song and the band in general. If like John, this is your first time giving them a listen, any comps or anything like that. I mean, John is still probably not quite nailed down who this guy reminds him of. But if you guys have any inclinations, please let us know what you think down below. Also, please, if you haven't yet done any or all of these things, like, share, and subscribe. It really does go a long way to help us garner some attention, up the numbers over here on YouTube. We need all the help we can get, and we really, really do appreciate it. And all of that now out of the way, hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in the future and in growing numbers on the next episode of the Audiophiles. We will see you later, guys.